So it was our anniversary, right? I took her to this fancy pants, five-star place for dinner, and she just wouldn't stop griping about the service. Seriously, she actually said I could have done better than that with my ex. Like, this'll do for now, she said. I just smiled, tossed a big tip on the table, and walked. She's been blowing up my phone ever since, but I haven't bothered to reply. Look, I'm 29, okay? I've always believed in doing things the right way, you know? Showing someone you care with thoughtful actions, remembering the little things, being there for them when it counts. I'm not one for all that flashy stuff. I don't go posting mushy stuff online, but I put in the work behind the scenes. So when our second anniversary rolled around, I really wanted to make it special for Dana. We've been together a little over 2 years now. Dana and I, she's 27, works in marketing at some startup, and she's probably the most confident person I've ever met in my life. She's one of those people who just owns a room the second she walks in, you know? Not in a loud way, just, she is the room. She's got that whole Pinterest perfect thing going on, always dressed like a model, always knowing exactly what to say to get everyone to listen. I really admired that, at least at the beginning. We met through a mutual friend, Jules, at some art gallery opening. I was awkwardly hovering by the snacks, and she just walked up to me and said, "You look like you hate everything in this room." She wasn't wrong, and I swear I laughed way too hard. That was Dana in a nutshell. She was something else right from the jump, a real firecracker. Everything seemed great at first, or maybe I was just wearing rose-colored glasses because I wanted to see the good. There were little red flags, little hints that something wasn't quite right, but I ignored them, you know, like you do when you're head over heels for someone, like the time she met my sister. She said something nice about her clothes, and then out of nowhere she added, "Wow, you're gutsy for wearing horizontal stripes. That takes some serious confidence." I thought it was a strange thing to say, but Dana just grinned like she was being sweet. My sister didn't really react, but I know she tucked that one away. And then there was how she talked about my job. I'm a freelance UX designer, mostly doing work for health and education stuff. I work from home, set my own hours, and I make a decent living. But Dana liked to act like it was no big deal, like I was just messing around on my computer. Whenever people asked what I did, she'd either dumb it down to something that sounded like a high school job or just say, "Oh, he's a tech guy." It bugged me, but I let it go over and over. I figured she just wasn't good at talking, you know? Maybe she didn't get how it sounded. Her family was another story. Her mom, Letitia, was a piece of work, the type who smiles while digging for dirt. At our first dinner, she leaned across the table and asked if I had a 5-year plan. Not like she was curious, but more like she'd already decided the answer was no. Her dad didn't say much, but it wasn't the kind of quiet that made you feel comfortable. Truth be told, it felt like her brother Max had mentally checked out ages ago, just sitting there waiting for someone to tell him he could leave. He barely even glanced up from his phone the whole night. The whole dinner felt like some kind of interview I was bombing. They were kind of jerks in these subtle ways, and Dana never stuck up for me, not that night or any other. Later, she'd just brush off how I felt, saying something like, "They're just trying to get to know you." My mom can be a lot, and every time I walked away from one of those family dinners, I felt like I was the one doing something wrong, like I was the one who didn't belong. But I stuck around. I kept telling myself things would get better if I just gave it more time, if I proved to them I was in it for the long haul. 2 years is a long time, you know? Long enough to make you think it has to mean something. And that brings me to the night it all fell apart. Our second anniversary was coming up, and I wanted to do something really special for Dana. She's always been into the finer things in life, designer shoes, fancy wine, the whole 9 yards. She never tried to hide it either. She follows all these influencers with their perfect lives and reviews restaurants like she's some kind of expert. So I thought, if I'm ever going to splurge, now's the time. I booked a table at this super expensive French restaurant she'd mentioned once, Le Fleur. The kind of place where they don't even put prices on the menu, just fancy names of dishes written in cursive. Snagging a table wasn't a walk in the park, let me tell you. I had to practically kill myself, taking on extra work for weeks just to afford it. But I really wanted to make her feel special, you know? I even got the hostess to put her favorite flowers, white orchids, on our table. Then she showed up, 25 minutes late. No message, nothing, just waltzed in, gave the place the stink eye, and plopped down with a sigh. Not even a hi or a "you look nice." Just, I thought this place would be brighter, it looks smaller than the pictures. I clenched my jaw, plastered on a smile, and shoved the menu across the table. Before I could even blink, she says, "Tell me you didn't get a tasting menu. I'm not in the mood for rabbit food." 5 minutes in, and I had a bad feeling. A really, really bad feeling. I tried, I swear I did, to not let her sour the whole night. She had on this gorgeous dark green dress, one I'd never seen before, probably should have known better. And her hair, those soft waves she only does for fancy stuff. She looked amazing, but her whole vibe was like she'd rather be anywhere else. Our waiter came over, this sweet guy with a kinda shaky smile. He was named Luca and asked if we wanted sparkling or still water. I said still. Dana didn't even look up from her phone. I heard the camera click and peeked over. She was taking a picture of the table, all set and pretty. Finally, she said, if the food's any good, I might put it up. Depends if it looks good enough. Luca gave her a little nod and went to get the water. I wanted to ask her, what was wrong, if something was up, if she was all right. But I already knew how that conversation would play out. Dana hated being grilled. When she was in one of her moods, she'd either tease me for being too sensitive or just shut it down with I'm fine. Don't make a big deal out of it. So instead, I said, you look beautiful tonight. She smiled for the first time. I know. I just waited, hoping for a thanks, or even just a real smile, one that reached her eyes, but nothing. She went back to staring at her phone, the screen reflecting on her face, making her look cold and distant. I just sat there trying to figure out why I thought tonight would be different. The appetizers came, a fancy plate of tuna tartare and some citrusy stuff. I thought it was good, but Dana just glared at hers like it had personally insulted her. She poked at it with her fork. This is it. I've seen better-looking food on a plane. I didn't say a word, just took another bite. The people at the table next to us gave her a quick look, and she noticed. Dana leaned in, whispering, what? I'm not gonna act like this is amazing just 'cause it's expensive. Seriously, if I wanted to pay a fortune for snacks, I'd go back to that sushi place. At least the lighting was good, I was still chewing, blinking a few times. It totally hit me then she didn't like that place at all. She hadn't mentioned a thing that night. She even raved about the dessert and put it on her Insta story with one of those cheesy date night goals captions. Now it felt like she'd been holding on to all these tiny little gripes, waiting for the perfect moment to unleash them. Luca came back to clear our plates, asking if everything was okay. Dana gave him this strained smile and said, fine, but do you guys even use salt in the kitchen, or is that extra? He just stared at her like he had no clue what to say. I quickly jumped in, trying to smooth things over. It's been great, thanks, I told him. Luca kind of awkwardly nodded and took our plates. As he walked away, Dana rolled her eyes. I don't get why people act like these places are too good for criticism, she muttered. Just because they put the food on a weird plate doesn't make it some kind of art. I just looked at her for a second. I was thinking, I thought you liked La Fleur, she shrugged. I liked the idea of it. I didn't know it would be so pretentious. There it was again, that thing she does, making everything seem beneath her. The food, the service, probably me too, but I kept my voice even. Well, I figured you'd enjoy it. You mentioned it once and She cut me off. Yeah, I remember. I was probably talking about some other place someone posted about. Adrian took me to this amazing spot in Napa once. It was kinda similar, but the food was actually delicious and the service, way better than I expected. My stomach did a little flip. Adrian, her ex-boyfriend. She'd mentioned him before, sure, but usually just in passing, like a throwaway line, a joke. This was different. This wasn't just a casual mention, she was actually comparing him to our anniversary dinner while we were still eating. I didn't say anything right away. I just took a sip of water and stared at the candle between us. She didn't even notice. She was too busy taking a selfie. I wanted to ask her what the heck she was doing there, why she even agreed to come if she wasn't into it. But I didn't, not yet. Something about her tone, the way she said, this will do for now. After talking about her ex, it just stopped me. Not angry, not sad, just frozen. Like someone hit pause on my whole life, the last 2 years of it. At first, I figured I was just overreacting. But the longer we sat there, the more I realized something had changed. Not just between us, but inside me. This wasn't just a bad date or a bad night. Something much bigger was becoming clear. I didn't want to face it, but it felt like a curtain was rising, and I was finally seeing her for who she really was. She'd been low-key disrespecting me all night, and it finally hit me bam. From her dismissive comments about my job to that snooty way she talked about Adrian, it was all too much. It felt like I'd been clinging to this fantasy of who she was, a version that probably wasn't even real. Or maybe it was real, but it was the picture I painted, not the one lurking right under the surface. She was using me, that's what kept pounding in my head, like I was a placeholder. It wasn't just the fancy dinner or the food or even that stupid comparison to her ex. It was the whole settling thing. Dana wasn't into me, she was just using me because it was easy, because I offered a nice life, And that realization, man, it burned. I swore I wouldn't let this go, not this time. I'm not one for drama, not at all. But seriously, this quiet anger was brewing inside me. It was a slow simmer under the surface, And the more I thought about it, the stronger that familiar need to take charge became. I knew I was going to get even, not some crazy, impulsive thing. Nope, I'd been with her long enough to know exactly how to make this sting. Not with yelling or anything, but with something way better. Patience. I'd wait for the perfect moment, then I'd hit her where it hurt. That dinner, the most uncomfortable thing ever. She just kept chatting like nothing was wrong, glued to her phone, making small talk with the waiter. But I was already done. I didn't say a word. I didn't even try to fix things. I simply asked for the bill, left a tip that seemed all right considering everything, and left without a peep. I could hear her shoes tapping fast behind me as she hurried to catch up. "What, Sam? Seriously?" she asked. "You're just leaving without a word?" I didn't even turn around. "You'll figure it out," I said, my voice steady, too steady. She didn't say anything, but I felt her staring at me. Her anger wasn't about the dinner. It was about me walking away, and for the first time, I didn't care. When I got back to my place, I sat there for a bit, just staring at my phone. Dana's texts started rolling in. At first, it was just a few casual messages like, "Why are you ignoring me? And this is ridiculous. We need to talk." But then they got more desperate. "I don't get what your problem is. You're being dramatic." It was followed by a bunch more. The final one read, "I don't know why I even bother with you. It's not like you can ever give me what I really want." A weird sense of peace washed over me. She had just handed me everything I needed. That last text, that was it. I didn't answer. That's the first part of my payback. Silence. Dana was always in control. She always called the shots, always got the last word, but not this time. I was taking charge. The next day, I began to think about how to really get back at her. I wasn't planning on going down the well-worn path, the screaming or the name calling. Nope, I needed something a little sneakier, something that would make her get what she'd done in a way she couldn't just brush off. I replayed all the little comments from our time together. How she'd always make fun of my work, like being a freelance designer was some kind of joke. And how she'd go on and on about her ex, Adrian, while taking little shots at me for not being him. I could already see the weaknesses, the faults in her perfect little world. It was a fragile setup, and if I played my cards right, it would all fall apart. That's when things got a little more complicated. Dana always thought she was in charge. She had to be in control, especially when it came to her future. She'd ramble on about saving up for a house, traveling the world, and starting her own marketing company. It was all about building this picture of perfection, the perfect life, the perfect partner, just everything. I knew exactly how to use that against her. I let a few days go by. Her texts started coming less often, and they seemed a little desperate. I could tell she was totally confused, trying to figure out what had gone wrong. But I didn't give her anything. I stayed silent and let her sweat. Then after a week, I finally texted her, just one line. "I think it's time we talked about what we want from each other." She texted back pretty quick, but this time there was no anger. She was all apologies, practically begging for forgiveness. I could tell she was trying to take back what she'd said, make it seem like nothing happened. But I wasn't buying it, not a chance. I needed her to understand exactly what she'd thrown away. A few days later, we met at a coffee shop. She launched into the usual spiel how I'd overreacted, how she didn't mean any of it, just a bad night, you know. I let her ramble on, trying to smooth things over. I just sat there, nodding. Then when she was done, I laid it all out. "I've been thinking about what you said," I told her, "and everything you've been doing. How you act when things don't go your way, how you compare me to your ex." She froze. Her eyes darted around, but I wasn't letting her wriggle out of this. "I'm not your backup plan, Dana," I said, "and I'm not your second choice. If you don't think I'm good enough, then maybe we should just call it quits." Her face went white. She tried to speak, but nothing came out. The look on her face, pure shock, proved what I'd suspected. She'd never thought I'd actually leave. Her eyes scanned the cafe like she was plotting her escape. "I didn't mean," she started, her voice shaky. I cut her off right there. "I'm not gonna pretend I don't know what's happening here. You've been playing me, keeping me around because it's convenient. You're already set up with your ex, and I'm just someone to pass the time." She started to say something, but it was like she was struggling to find the words. "That's not true." Her voice cracked, and she stared down at her coffee, twisting it around and around. I just sat back, letting her struggle. I was done with her explanations. I didn't care about the woman across from me, who was clutching her coffee cup like it was a lifeline, trying to hold it together. This wasn't the Dana I fell for. This wasn't the person I wanted to be with anymore. "You think I don't see it, Dana?" I said softly, but my voice was steady. "I'm not an idiot. I know what's going on. You've got this amazing future planned, and you've been trying to force me into it. But guess what? I don't belong there, and I'm not going to keep changing myself to fit your plans. It's over." The words just hung there like a weight in the room. Her face, which had been all red and angry a second before, lost all its color. Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. She couldn't fight me on this one. There was a long silence. You could see how shaken she was, her usual confidence totally gone, and honestly, I felt a tiny bit good about that. It felt like I was finally standing up for myself, finally saying, "Enough is enough, I'm not your backup anymore." "I never thought you could be so mean, Sam," she whispered, all pleading and tiny. I just shook my head. "Don't try to twist this around on me," I told her. "I'm not the one who's been cruel. I've been patient. I've taken a whole lot." But that was it. She looked away, her eyes darting around the table like she was searching for an escape, anything to avoid facing this. Then, bam, the desperation hit. I saw it in how she shifted around, how her hands played with her phone, even the way her lip quivered a little. She was losing it. And that's when I knew this was it, the moment I'd been waiting for. "I don't know what you want from me, Sam," she snapped, getting all huffy again. "You're making me sound like a monster, but this stuff happens. People change. We change. Sometimes you just drift apart." The anger almost bubbled up, but I kept it cool. Staying calm was my weapon. I was in charge now. "No, Dana, you can't blame this on me," I said. "You just didn't want to try. You didn't want to work through the hard stuff. You just wanted me around as long as it suited you." And I was done. She jumped up, knocking her chair over. "Fine," she said. "Whatever, Sam." "Okay, so if that's how it's gonna be, then we're done." I got up real slow, like I was making a point. She was right, though. There wasn't anything left to say, but she'd remember this, you know? She'd remember how she treated me. And she'd remember that when she decided to ditch me for her perfect little life, I was the one who walked. Her face got all screwed up and she took a step or two back. "You're an idiot," she mumbled, practically spitting the words out. "This is insane. I can't believe I wasted my time with you." I just smiled. "Good," I said. "You'll get over it. You always do." She spun around and stomped out of the coffee shop, leaving this heavy, awful silence hanging in the air. I just sat there for a minute. A part of me wanted to watch her go, to see the look on her face when it finally hit her that she didn't control me anymore. But I didn't need to see it. I already knew. I paid for my coffee, gathered my stuff, and got out of there. Walking to my car, I felt so much lighter, like a huge weight had been lifted. The thing with Dana was, she always thought she could just use me, push me around, make me feel like I was nothing more than an extra in her movie. She never took me seriously because she always had some other thing going on. She figured I'd just take it, but not this time. I got in my car, pulled out of the lot, and my phone buzzed. Another text from her. I didn't even care. I didn't bother reading it. I knew the drill. She was trying to get me back in her orbit, but I wasn't going to cave this time. I had a game plan, and it was about more than just cutting things off with Dana. I wanted her to understand what losing me actually meant. It was about her finally seeing the fallout of treating me like I was disposable, like she could just use me, and then ditch me when I didn't fit her mold anymore. I didn't answer Dana's texts that night or the next day, or even the next week when I bumped into her at a friend's get-together. She tried to come over, flashing that same smile, acting like everything was totally cool. But I wasn't buying it. I wasn't that same pushover from before, the one who always apologized first or tried to smooth things over just to dodge drama. I was done with all that. That night, I took a step back and really thought about who I wanted to be going forward. Dana had really shown me what she was all about, manipulating situations, making everything about herself, and using people to get what she wanted. That's what stung the most. She was so wrapped up in her own stuff that she never even bothered to see me as an actual person, just a piece to fit into her puzzle. But I wasn't letting her have the final say this time. Around a week later, I reached out. Not because I missed her, not because I wanted to fix things, but because I needed to be done. I sent her one simple message. "I hope you find what you're looking for. I know you'll see it eventually that it wasn't what you thought it was." She skimmed it and then left me hanging, didn't respond for hours. A part of me was bracing myself for some kind of argument, something to make me feel bad. But she didn't. No guilt, no playing games with my feelings for once. It was like I'd said my part and she knew there was no fixing it. A few days later, I saw her out with her friends. She didn't even glance my way. No trying to get my attention or any kind of drama. It was like I didn't exist in her world anymore. And you know what? It felt good. It proved once and for all that she hadn't really loved me, not the way I needed, not the way I deserved. Then things changed. Dana started putting up pictures, showing off her amazing life. New vacations, new pals, all sorts of stuff. Always with that same fake smile, the same carefully crafted picture. But it was all so phony. You could see the cracks. She began comparing every new guy she dated to Adrian, her ex, and every single caption sounded like she was desperately trying to convince everyone, including herself, that she was okay, that our breakup hadn't bothered her. I just kept going, living my life, drama-free. I poured myself into my job, hung out with friends I hadn't seen in ages, and did all the things that made me happy. Stuff that made me feel like I was building a life that actually meant something to me. Dana's posts kept coming, and I couldn't help but feel a little good inside. I was the one who dumped Adrian. Thought I could find something better, you know? Turns out I just ended up all alone in my own little fantasy world. It crumbled pretty quickly. Meanwhile, I was actually doing okay. It was the first time in ages I felt like I could finally breathe. Like I wasn't constantly twisting myself into a pretzel trying to fit into someone else's idea of who I should be. Months passed, and Dana actually got in touch. But it was totally different. No yelling, no begging, just this cold, short text asking if we could grab coffee and talk. I could tell she was freaking out even though she tried to hide it. But I didn't answer her. What was there to say, really? I guess I got my revenge, but not in some big, dramatic way. It was more about how I lived my life after she was gone. I took charge of my own happiness and decided she wasn't going to be a part of it anymore.